Well, thank you for joining us this morning. Well, we're going to be talking about United Mutual, and this is a regular report each Friday. And joining us today is Maggie Blackwell, and you are going to be telling us a little bit about your strategic planning that's going on with United, and that's kind of something that's new for the mutuals, and I think it's super important at this time.
Right. I was unfamiliar with it because as an attorney, I never had strategic planning. You deal with what comes in
Case by case,
case
right?
by case,
Yeah.
and do this and that and the other thing. I don't say I wanted to do 700 cases a year and I want to do them, this many go to trial. And so this was new to me. It's very interesting and very well structured. And I think it's a good idea. It gets people thinking in a different way. And so we had 4 basic strategic plan goals. And the first one was to be a board that keeps residents better informed. Well, I think we've done that for this last year. All the boards for the last 2 years have really emphasized, let's get the communication out to the residents. Let's let them know what's going on. I think that's been part of the problems in the past, and it's continuing to be a part of the problem. We can put information out, but if the residents don't hear about it from each other to look for it, or if they don't have the Globe to look for it, if they don't glance through TV6, they will. We can put it all out there all we want and stack it on the tables in the clubhouses, and if they don't touch it, then there's nothing we could do. So all we can do is, but now we send emails and we have blasts weekly and so on and so on. Communication is really, really important.
Right.
And the difficulty with the dichotomy is the residents are here and they want to be retired, and they don't want to be involved in the business of managing or anything like that in the community. They want it to happen for them.
Right.
And that's why they elect people that they think will make it happen for them. But then they don't know the background and the history and all the whole package about the problems.
Right. And usually they'll show up when it personally will affect them.
Exactly.
And then they don't understand the process.
Right, right. But it's very understandable for them. You know, when they complain about the landscape, it's because they've had their own house before, and they just call the gardener up and say, hey, I want these petunias replaced. And it's so easily done and so quickly, or they put it off forever and don't do anything with their yard. But here we have so many processes, and we're so big and involved, and yet some people say we should all meld into one big board. Well, that's a little difficult. I mean, if you look at Turtle Rock over there, just over the hill, they have over 200 HOAs.
Wow.
And they're much smaller than we are. I mean,
Yeah.
and the HOAs don't have to do innumerable swimming pools and big meetings and big landscape and all of this. They're doing one little sign in a flower patch here and maybe a pool here, and that's it. So it's a whole different problem. And so this is a very unique place.
Very.
Very unique place. But a strategic plan is really a good idea to get the directors' minds in frame with the reality of the village and the reality of United. So we do want to keep residents better informed, and we are doing ever so many things now to do that. And some of the residents say, well, you don't listen to us. Well, what they say may be valid, but that may have been considered, you know, every year for 15 years, and they don't realize it's been considered and brought up every year for 15 years. And we say, no, we can't possibly do that because, and so what they say is valid and is a point, but it means we have to reconsider, re-answer all of these things every year. Some of the questions are the same.
Right.
And that's just a part of their involvement. But not everyone can be totally involved.
You'd have 18,000 people.
That's right.
You'd have
I mean,
meetings in the
whoa.
Performing Arts Center all the time.
Right,
Yeah.
that's right. We could rent out the Coliseum or something like that. Our next goal was to commit to being a unified team. Now, this is always really difficult for board members. Most people who are running for office are type A personality. Some are super A plus, you know. But we're basically all type A's. So unless we've had a career or some associations that help us to work together, then working together as a team is very difficult to learn, because it's like putting them on a shell in a crew, and you all have to do
You have to row at the
this
same time.
in order to
Yeah.
get to your goal there. You have to cooperate.
Right.
And one can't row twice as fast because
Mm-hmm.
he's stronger, and the other one can't sit in the back. And, you know, the only one who could sit still is the coxswain who's up there yelling the directions.
Right. And you can only have one of them.
That's right, that's right. So you don't have a front one and a rear one and so on. So this is a really important part for us, and it's like part of civilization. There's a give and take. But the plus of doing it successfully is so great. So we have a board members' rule of code of conduct, which says we have to behave in this way and this way and this way. We're supposed to use Robert's Rules of Order, and sometimes we misunderstand what the rule is and get that wrong, but we're getting better and better at that. We decided that the important things for us are to remember that when we are in a meeting, there is a populace out here watching us, we hope.
They are.
And that they are the ones we want to communicate to. Yes, we want to argue our point, but we don't want to become so obscure that everyone out here floats away, because that's why we're televised, is so they can understand and see what's going on. And when we're at Robert's Rules of Order, it's like the court. You say what you have to say at the time you're supposed to say it, and you don't interrupt anybody else. I didn't get to interrupt anybody else in the courtroom, but I knew my time would come. And so you have to realize that your time will come. You will be called on if you raise your hand or put your name down. And that's the way it is. Everything at the right time. So we decided that important for us was to show respect for one another and respect for the residents, be open-minded and cognizant of the fact that there are diversities and different opinions. And the most important thing for a board to remember is, if all of these things are mentioned somewhere during the process of making a decision, then the decision will be more valid and last longer, because you won't have the pitfall of this, which you may have, you said, yes, okay, we'll look at this. This is brought up by someone, anyone, and you hear it and you consider it, and you say yes or no, and someone makes a comment. I heard a really good idea the other day, in this meeting, in fact, the meeting before, on the same day, and someone had what sounded like a great suggestion for a budget improvement, until someone asked a question. And then we saw that at best, if the improvement was totally done, we would affect maybe $2 million out of a $102 million budget. Well, is that worth doing and worth employing people for?
Right.
Perhaps not. You can't get that mired in details. So you have to learn how to listen and how to evaluate. I mean, at first I thought, hey, that's a good idea, and several of us did, and then somebody asked a question. And we go through the process of the question, and we see, because we were listening to the question and willing to go through the process, we could see that this was, although a valid point, it may not be one that we did want to spend time on, that we might be better attacking the larger items than the tiny ones. So you have to learn to work together and be polite, listen to each other. Don't just stick in with everybody has a goal when they join the boards.
Right.
And so you can't just go in with blinders on and say, we're going to turn this into whatever, Disneyland, and forget everything else. So we have to be committed to becoming a unified team. Then we have to establish a protocol for communicating with VMS staff. I mean, some people are used to dealing with employees. Some people know what the laws and rules are, and some people do not. And if they're used to just busting into the office and telling this person to do this, which is usually that's where it comes from, because our people are usually well educated. They can be, but not everyone is like that on the board, but some people are. They're just used to being able, what they think is valid may be valid and it may be good, but they are too abrupt with the employees or so, and they're not used to working with them. And you have to control yourself. Sure.
Now you've been here almost 14 years, right? So the first, I would say, what, 8 years, what were you doing? Because you kind of came on the scene about 5 to 6 years ago.
Oh, right. I came in 2004. I came because a friend of mine said, Mag, when you retire, you must come here and play golf. And bingo, I did.
So that's what you were doing. Great.
So I went through the Women's Golf Club and was an officer for 9 years at different things. And that was a lot of fun. And then when the master plan came, the golfers were in at the very beginning of the inception of the master plan. And so I watched all of that grow, and I could see that there was becoming a misjoint, because the publicity the information wasn't getting out right, and then a step was made that was not well publicized, and then everything just falls down because people get upset.
Right.
And it all came crashing down, and what may have been a very valid idea and a very good idea, in fact, a director suggested it just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, said, why don't we have a master plan for all of this? And I thought, ooh, where have you been?
Here we go again.
But so this is what a strategic plan does, is it points you in the direction of certain goals, which are very important. And once you establish the goals together, and then you say, we're going to do this and this and this, and when you get down to the finer details, you begin the process of working together and understanding what everybody needs.
Well, your committee meets not in January, but you'll be meeting in February, and we encourage people to look that up on the Monday memo and find out when those meeting times and dates and locations are. And if you're a United Mutual member, we definitely encourage you to be a part of the process. They do meet on the second Tuesday of each month at 9:30 a.m. That is their regular monthly meeting. And that's a great place to start. Just have a listen at some point. And of course, a lot of people are watching on Village Television, but in order to have your voice, you need to participate. So we encourage you to attend not only the regular monthly meetings, but it's important to be part of the committee process, because that's where the decisions are really made. Those decisions are then made and then presented to the boards, and then the board will decide yes or no whether to go forward with it. But all the hard work is done at the committee level, so we encourage the residents to be a part of that, just like the strategic planning committee.
Exactly. The committee decides what reports are needed and what investigation needs to be done, and that's where they discuss all of that. By the time they make the recommendation to the board, that work is all done, and it's just recorded in like 2 sheets of paper or 3 sheets of paper in the big agenda, but you get the core work done at the committee.
Right.
That's right.
Well, we thank you for joining us on the program today, and we encourage our residents to be a part of the process like we had mentioned. And be sure and tune in each Friday if you're a United Mutual member. We do have a report from that board, and one of their directors will come on and discuss what committee they're working on or what the boards are doing for especially 2018. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's good to see you.
Be sure and join us still. Don't go away. We're going to bring you the Chinese American New Year that's going to be happening on January 20th over at the Performing Arts Center.
That is such a wonderful program.
Yes, it is. It's going to be fun.